Hello once again, all my YouTube comic book family. This is part 2 of the Q&A on the 100 subscriber contest. We'll see how many we'll get through here. We'll try not to make these too long because a lot of people had 2 or 3 questions. But I'll just start right in. Okay, this is from our buddy across the water, Mr. Klaus Schnell. His question is, what independent run of books would you like to have a complete set of most? And it can't be from Marvel or DC. Also, who is your least favorite artist? A lot of cool independent runs. That is a tough one. I was really into a horror and sci-fi thing back in the 80s, and I got into Twisted Tales and Alien Encounters and Tales of Terror, and I've got a complete run of Twisted Tales. Probably any of the horror sci-fi stuff I don't have because I'm shy some issues on Alien Encounters and Alien Worlds. And there were some great artists there. I mean, you had Corbin and Dave Stevens and Val Merrick and John Bolton, just all kinds of great artists and writers. But I'm not really sure what issues I have missing on those. But it would be to complete those runs, and there's not that many in those titles. Some of them didn't last 10 or 12 issues, but probably just to get all the you said a run, but there's very few that I need, so probably just to kind of complete those runs or those 2 or 3 titles that I don't have. As far as least favorite artist, I don't really like to go into least favorite artist. I mean, there's something about every artist that's in it, but even if I don't like his stuff over, there might be a panel or something that looks good to me. I would probably have to go back to when I was a kid, and I know I'm going to probably get a lot of hate mail on this one, but I was not a fan of Vince Colletta. I know he inked a lot of Kirby stuff, and he did a lot of stuff on his own, and I just did not like the guy's style. I mean, it was just kind of bland to me, and and there's a lot of other inkers I liked better on Kirby than Colletta. There might be some agree with me, some probably won't, but I wasn't a big fan of his. I can't really think of anybody current whose art I hate. I mean, there's a lot of great talent, and I hate to diss on those people, but probably that's the one that comes to mind that I really didn't like that much was Colletta. So there it is. Okay, this is from Comic Book Jedi. My question is, if you could be a superhero yourself, what would be your superpower or powers? This is easy. Time travel. I would love to be able to travel in time. Not so much going to the future, because that thought is kind of scary in today's world. But probably just to travel back in time, see my mom and dad when they were young. Go through that whole thing where you could see them meet, or go back and see my grandfather that I didn't get to know, and an uncle or 2 that I didn't get to know, or just ancestors all the way down the line, and just to see great moments in history. I mean, to me, I love historical or fact-based movies and comics, and that would just be a great power to have. I mean, just to be able to view all that stuff that went on, especially with your family. So that would be my power. All right. This is from our good friend, Mr. Weinhardt, Tony. My question to you is, if you had to choose another hobby other than comics, let me find out where my paper went. Okay, what would it be and why? If you had to choose another hobby other than comics, what would it be and why? I got a lot of interest. I mean, besides the comics, I mean, I'm into my art and especially the music. So those are, you know, I couldn't really think of giving any of those up or singling any of those out. But if I had to choose another hobby other than fill the slot that comics are in right now, probably would be model railroading, because I've always loved trains. You know, I built a little Christmas village last year, and I put a little N-scale train on it. And I always loved, you know, reading Model Railroad magazine. I had train sets, you know, like every year when, you know, growing up as a kid. And I just love those immense layouts that you see at some of these model train shows. And I just think, you know, and that is like a seriously expensive hobby. You know, because you know, I've looked at the numbers, and man, it takes a lot of money even to build, you know, like a smaller module. You know, but that is like one thing for the retirement years. Maybe, hopefully, if you know, if I got rid of some of this, you know, make room for a, you know, little model train deal. But that would probably be what I do. So thanks, Tony, and thanks, Klaus, Comic Book Jedi, on those. Okay. And this is from my buddy Scott, Coast and Bromstar. What is your favorite childhood memory connected with comic books? So many, man. I think, and I think I've talked about this on an earlier video, and it's been down the road. But you know, when I first got into reading comics, of course, you know, I was like any other kid back in the early 70s, I guess, late 60s. You know, I read all the funny animal stuff. I read Richie Rich and Casper and all the Archie books and the Gold Key stuff, and I really didn't get into wanting to collect comics. You mean as far as getting an issue every month, until I started reading the superhero stuff. So, you know, Justice League of America, Superboy and the Legion, you know, all the 70s horror reprints from Marvel. That's really what got me juiced up. But probably my favorite memory as a kid, and this happened, you know, probably every couple of weeks. You know, I'd get what allowance that I would get or whatever extra change I had, and I used to hate to get a haircut when I was a kid. So what I found out later was, when we moved, the barber that my dad used to take me to was like right down the street from a couple drugstores, and that's where the loot was. That was the major booty for comic books, because they had like the big huge comic racks and you know, the spinner racks and all that. And when I got into wanting to get Justice League every month, and you know, the monster books and all that, it was like my favorite memory. But I would jump in the chair first, get my haircut done, and then I would run up the street to the drugstore. So, and I knew Dad wanted to BS with the barbers and all that kind of stuff, and so I would, you know, have like a half an hour or 45 minutes where I could just like pour over everything and pick out, you know, my favorite titles, which was a hard thing to do. You know, if you just had a couple bucks and change, and you're like, oh God, what do I get? But back then, you know, comics were 20 cents, you know, a quarter, and except for the 100-page giants and the giant side from DC and Marvel. But that was my favorite thing, and most of the time after he got done with his haircut, he would have to come looking for me in the drugstore and say, are you ready to go yet? But that's a great memory. I would just walk out there and have my little stack of books, you know, and I would read them on the way home, and then later that night I would read them before I went to bed. And you know, I just my comic books from then are like well worn. But that is like one of my favorite childhood memories. Thank you, Scott. Captain Strangelive asks, if you were forced to choose a DC female villain to marry, which one would it be and why? And no Catwoman. No Catwoman. Wow. DC female villain. It's hard to think of a DC female villain that's worthy, I guess. Okay, I got one. I'm a big fan of the Crime Syndicate, the Earth 3 concept that DC had, you know, the evil Justice League and all that. So probably Superwoman. She's hot. So Hans, there you go. You know, it's the best I can do. But you know, I love the Crime Syndicate, so yeah, she probably would be my favorite. Okay, this is from Batman Comic 87. Who are your top 5 comic book villains? Okay, top 5 comic book villains. You got to throw Joker in there. Doctor Doom. Darkseid, of course. Probably. I always love the Avenger stories with Kang the Conqueror. So we would have Kang and Doctor Doom from Marvel, Darkseid, and whoever else it was I just said for DC. And I don't know. Probably the Time Trapper, Legion of Superheroes villain, and he's been in some other stuff. But like I say, I like the time travel concept, and where he was able to control time, and he actually had his own little pocket universe where after Superman was rebooted after Crisis, that was the explanation they gave to why he was not Superboy. Superboy was actually created by the Time Trapper in their own little pocket universe. So there you go with that. So thank you, sir. And Captain Cummings. My question is, what is your favorite series to read? Let's see, I think Hippie had a question similar to this, as far as series from DC and Marvel. What's my favorite series to read? He didn't specify old or new, so since I already told Tom that probably Uncanny Avengers and Batman Incorporated would be the 2 current new books, probably Commandy. I mean, I've read that series so many times and I've enjoyed it. Every time I went through it, it's just it's Kirby at his best in the 70s. I just love that series. So thanks, Phil. Okay, Gene Paul H. Peter. My question is, you often see team-ups. Usually it's hero-hero or villain-villain. What do you think would be a great hero-villain combo, past or present? Wow. I think, and this has probably already been done in some stories, but I really like the idea, where I'm a fan of the Earth 3 crime syndicate and all that. Probably have a situation where Superman would be forced to team up with his exact opposite doppelganger, Ultraman, just to see how that would go. And I think there's probably have been some stories where they've been in there together, but as far as having to team up, I'm not sure. But I would say, Superman and Ultraman. Okay, and this is from Cosmo Bosco 7171. Here's my question. Between Marvel and DC, what would be your ultimate one-on-one battle? I don't know. There's been a lot of this already when they did the DC versus Marvel thing. I mean, you had Superman against Hulk and, Thor against Captain Marvel. And I don't know. This was, a lot of this stuff's already been done, so I'm not. I tell you what I would like to see, just because I'm a fan of these characters in these books, is Man-Thing and Swamp-Thing. Just imagine that drawn by Bernie Wrightson. Yeah, I'll go with that. The Man-Thing and Swamp-Thing. All right, thanks a lot. This is from PghZombie. What comic series character would you like to see next be made into a film, and who would play the lead role? I would like to see Shazam, the DC version of Captain Marvel, actually get his own movie, because that just seemed like a great concept to me. A kid saying a magic word, and done in a serious sort of way. But Captain Marvel. And as far as who would play him, I mean, you would have to have 2 guys. So I'm just going to try to say who would play Captain Marvel. That's tough, because you would have to have a guy that is huge, or at least give you the semblance of somebody that's huge. Wow, I don't know. I can't think of any actor off the top of my head that could really pull that off. Just don't know. I tell you what, I'll have to research that one. But you know, Captain Marvel would be the movie I'd like to see. Shazam, and I'll have to figure out. I'll come back later if I can figure out who an actor could be for that. Okay, this is from the SpaceBaby. I know you recently moved. How did you set up the storage area for all your books, and what is your setup? And do you like Patino's new tattoo? Now this last part, I'm assuming SpaceBaby is from Kentucky, or he's from an area around here, because you know Louisville just won the NCAA championship in basketball. I'm not a huge Patino fan because I'm a huge Kentucky fan. You know, to me, Patino is a traitor. And I know he got like the Louisville Cardinal tattoo on his arm, or the NCAA championship or something. But you know, that tattoo's okay. You know, I pull for Louisville to win if they're not playing Kentucky. You know, but you know, tattoo is okay. As far as my setup, I really didn't have a setup until recently. I mean, I just had boxes piled behind me, and you can kind of see in the background. My dad actually came up, and you know, I gave him some dimensions, and he helped me put up some shelves. And my son came up, so I've got, you know, probably 15 boxes to a section. I've got like, you know, 3 boxes on the floor, and then 4 more sections. And there's enough room on here for like 70 boxes, of which I've still got some on the floor and some on this table. But I've actually got enough room over here now, except maybe for a few boxes, to have every box in a shelf where I can pull it out. And I've got, actually, I've got some more lumber over here in the corner. I'm going to put some stringers on top if I don't have room, and I'll just stack more boxes on top. But this way, before, I mean, I had all the boxes sticking on top of each other, and you know, some of those boxes are old, and they, you know, some of them's got comics that I want to keep in good shape. So, actually, now this is the first time I've actually started to get a good setup going. But I appreciate that question. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is from my buddy Gimpy204, and I knew this was going to be a Planet of the Apes question. So Todd, your question is, what is your favorite Apes movie, and who's your favorite ape? Well, the first, you know, I love the original Planet of the Apes, but actually the first Apes movie I saw was Beneath. I saw Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and so it's kind of hard to choose between those two because the first one is such a classic film, and it's the granddaddy of them all and all that. But you know, probably I would have to say number 1 because it kind of set the stage for the rest of them. Because I saw Beneath first, you know, and people that have seen Beneath, you know, okay, you have the astronaut coming to find another astronaut. And I was kind of confused because I hadn't seen the first movie yet. And then at the end, you know, both astronauts get killed, and they blow up the world. You know, of course, after that, there were 3 more movies. But then I got to go back and actually watch the first Planet of the Apes when they had Go Ape Week when I was a kid. So that was a great memory. I mean, I just stayed glued to the TV. And then that's about the time the TV series started. The TV series was good. I liked it. I mean, there's just so many times you can jump out of a tree onto an ape and ride down a road on a wagon. You know, don't get me wrong, I love all the old ape stuff, but yep, probably the first movie. Close second would be Beneath. A lot of people hate Beneath because the ending is so depressing, I guess. You know, because Heston gets killed, James Franciscus gets killed, Nova gets killed. You know, and I hope I'm not spoiling this for anybody that hasn't seen it, but you know, it does kind of end bad. But then you, all of a sudden, you know, you have 3 more movies. But for people that haven't seen those, I'll let you figure out how that worked. But yeah, the first is my favorite. As far as favorite ape, my old friend Dr. Zayas. Man is a pestilence. There you go, Todd. Okay, Big Shot Comics. As a kid whose fondest comic memories revolve around the Bronze Age, and especially books from the early half of the 70s. Okay, that's not part of the question. Sorry. Oh, he's wanting a little questions. He wants a little recap on my musical history and another old-time comic story, early Bronze Age comic memory story would be cool. Musical history. Well, I started playing guitar when I was 7 years old. My dad played, and he used to get together with my mom's brothers. And of course, I was raised after I was 6 or 7, 8 years old. I was pretty much raised, in a rural area in the country after that. So the music was mostly country, western, bluegrass, and gospel. And on the weekends, my dad would play with his brother-in-laws. But I think it got down to a point where he wanted to play more often, so I think I got drafted. So you're going to play guitar because I want somebody to play with. But yeah, he taught me the basics, and he taught me a lot of stuff when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And that's where I started out. And when I was like 13 or so, I picked up the bass. And at that time, there were no rock and roll records in my house. And my aunt gave me a huge stack of old LPs and 45s, and you had classic stuff in there like the Beatles and Ray Charles and Marvin Gaye and the Beach Boys and the Association, Rolling Stones, Elvis, a lot of the great stuff from the 60s and early 70s. And of course there was some, other stuff in there like the Tijuana Brass and, Engelbert Humperdinck and what else? Lovin' Spoonful was in there. Monkeys, I'm a big Monkeys fan. But I started listening to those and listening to the old 45s, and I just got hooked. I was like, wow, this is great. Of course, I think my dad sort of called me a traitor because I wasn't listening to country and bluegrass anymore. But yeah, I got into that, and when I was 13, I picked up the bass, and because at that time. If you were playing music and you had an instrument and you wanted to be in a band when you were a kid, everybody and his brother wanted to be a lead player or a lead singer. And of course, I had to be different. I wanted to be a bass player. I just thought the bass was such a cool instrument because you got to carry the rhythm, you got to carry the melody, you have to do fills, and I just thought the whole thing was awesome. So I just started listening to all those old LPs and 45s, and later on I had cassettes I listened to, and I just musicians are the biggest thieves in the world. So, I picked up stuff from anywhere I could. So around 15, I started playing in clubs, snuck around for 6 years before I was legal. But played a lot of clubs, a lot of country and western stuff, a lot of rock stuff. Played in some classic bands, played in a couple of R&B bands. Even played in a metal band for a short time. And it's just one of those things that I love music, and even though I might get jaded about it sometimes, and I'll quit for a while, I know I'll always go back because I'll get the urge to go out and play. And I'm actually kind of in the process with a friend of mine. We're trying to audition some guitarists to come in and get out and start playing a little bit. That's a short history. If you want to know any more, I can come back with another video and give you a detailed, band by band, or who did we open for, or who did, and all that stuff. But yeah, that's a little musical history. And an old-time comic story, early Bronze Age comic memory. Okay, I'll tell you, this will kind of take care of both those things. When I first started getting into comics, I didn't realize for a while that you could find back issues or older books, because I would look at some of these DC and Marvel comics, and you would see references to other books. Okay, well, this refers back to Batman 243, or see Avengers 17 for the origin of this guy. I was like, where do you get those books, Well, I found out later, you could order catalogs and you could order the back issue stuff, but, flea markets were a great place for that. So this is kind of a depressing memory in a way, but there was a huge flea market, probably an hour and a half from where I lived, and I went with my cousins, and I didn't think anything about finding comic books. and I'd seen all these great covers of books that had been out in a few years or, a few months or whatever. Well, went up there and it seemed like every 10 feet there was a guy selling a stack of comic books. I mean, this was like 12, 15, 20 cent cover price on every imaginable comic that you could, And I went with my cousins and my aunt and uncle, and my mom and dad weren't there, and so I did not have a dime to my name. And my pride wouldn't let me ask, aunt and uncle for money. But I poured through stuff, and I mean, there was like those old great Brave and Bold comics where Batman was with the Joker, and you saw all those Neil Adams Avengers issues and old Justice Leagues and old Spider-Man comics. And there were just piles and piles and piles of this stuff, and I did not have a dime to my name. I was sad. But later on, I rectified that, and I, spent everything that I earned as a kid, buying comic books. So, there you go. Okay, got a couple more. This is from Venom. I'm sorry, guy, I don't know how you want to pronounce this, but it's from Venom, Homerulus 14. Homer Lewis. Anyway, congrats, my friend. My question is, which is your favorite or favorites Neil Adams comics? Probably my Batman 251. That was like probably the first Batman 251 and 255. 255 was a 100-page giant, but it had a Neil Adams story in the front where he was fighting a werewolf. It's called Night of the Wolf. Awesome story. But 251 was the classic Joker cover where he has Batman on the playing card, and to me that was like his best art ever in that story. Yeah, so probably those two, and probably the cover of Superman 233 where he's he's got the kryptonite chains, and he's like breaking the kryptonite chains, and it says "Kryptonite no more." Actually, Hippie is going to have that book signed for me by Neil. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, probably Superman 233, Batman 251, and 255. Okay, this is from my good buddy Chris Meadows. Here's his question. You're the chief editor of DC Comics. You're revamping Commandy. Who is your writer, penciler, and inker? They have to be living. Can't use Kirby. Okay. Wow. So I'm just assuming we're talking about current artists and writers. There's two writers come to mind automatically. Grant Morrison, because he's such a great writer, and but I would probably have to choose Jeff Johns, just because he has such a good feel for the DC characters and for a lot of that Kirby stuff. And so probably Jeff Johns would be the writer. And probably, since he is like one of my favorite artists that is still living, probably Mike Grell. Because I've never seen an illustration, even on his website, where he's doing commissions and all. I've never seen him do a piece of Commandy artwork. So I'm just kind of, with his style, I kind of think that would be kind of interesting to see Mike Grell doing Commandy. So, Chris, buddy, there you go. That's all the questions. And I guess we have a little drawing to do. So the prize is 10 Bronze Age books. I've shown all those a couple times. Got everybody's name in my handy dandy BC mug. So we're just going to see who wins. Alright. Okay, and the winner is Greco Fabulous. Alright, man, congratulations. I'll send you a PM soon anyway if you don't see this video. But just give me your mail info and I'll get the books out to you. I want to thank everyone that joined in this little soiree. A lot of great questions. I appreciate each and every one. I appreciate all the brothers in this community and sisters. and I'm just glad to be a part of it. Thanks, guys. Onward and upward.